Welcome everybody, Christina Wolf here, and it is Thursday, April 12th, 2018. This is another episode of Conversations About the Universe and You in It. And as you can see, my hair is going a little crazy today. It's kind of curly. And I was reminded of, it's funny, hair has been on the topic of hair and I guess letting your freak flag fly, I guess, has been sort of one of those synchronous topics as of late, like the last 2 days. And okay, so let me just say this. I usually try to wait until I get a little bit closer to doing these before I kind of come up with a topic about what I want to talk about, because I like them to be more channeled, I guess, from spirit. And lately I've been just sort of going with inspiration, and for whatever purpose in the mornings when I drive to work, I've been really inspired to be listening to Crosby, Stills, Nash & Young. And they used to be, when I was in high school, one of my favorite bands to listen to. I was into like classic rock, like the Grateful Dead and Crosby, Stills, Nash & Young, Jefferson Airplane, all of those. Well, anyway, one of the songs that Crosby, Stills, Nash & Young do that was like one of my favorites was Almost Cut My Hair. And I don't know if for those of you who've never heard it or you haven't heard it in a while, I'll put a link to it in the comments section. Well, anyway, it's a full 2 minutes. Hopefully somebody's going to pop on here. If not, I love babbling to the universe at large. Somebody will hear this at the divine time that they're supposed to hear it. And I wanted to talk about hair in general and how its spiritual significance comes about. And another one of my mentors, I think she had posted some article about her hair, or she talked about her own hair and how she'd been guided to cut her hair or shave her head, and she'd had multiple colors dyed into her hair, and she'd recently shaved it, and she's part Chiricahua Apache and a few other tribes of Indian, and for her, and then the native way, like hair has a lot of significance. You might have heard the old urban legend about the Native scouts in the U.S. Army in the Vietnam War, how they supposedly recruited Native American scouts, and once they got the standard military haircut and they shaved their hair off, their ability to track and use their intuition went away. And so some of that is like debunked as urban legend, or maybe most of it or all of it or whatnot. But to me, where there's smoke, there's fire. And I do truly believe like your hair is an extension of the nervous system. Just think about the concept in the fight or flight response in your body. Like that feeling like you can sense somebody standing behind you, or the hair on the back of your neck stands up. Actually in Native culture, they believe like hair has, it carries your essence, and it's sort of like it is an extension of your intuition, and it holds your power. So like whenever they would be, if somebody were to cut your hair, it's a sense of losing your power. I always think about, and this thought is pervasive in other cultures too. I think about Bob Marley. I'm wearing you guys can see it, my Bob Marley shirt. There you go. Anyway, Bob was a, oops, before I break my computer here. Bob was, if you don't know, if you lived under a rock, he was a Rastafari man from Jamaica, and in the Rastafari religion, your hair is also a huge source of power. They grow their dreads out, and they don't cut them or anything. And so for him, when he ended up being diagnosed with cancer, which eventually was the thing that killed him. You know, when he lost his dreads due to chemo towards the end, it was like kind of a huge blow to his sense of self. And anyway, this is just strange little factoids about hair, because my hair was like a little crazy, and I was thinking, like, you know, so many weird little tidbits about the spiritual essence of hair and things like that have been coming up. So anyway, one more last little tidbit about hair. In the native way, they look at hair kind of like similar to Mother Earth and like sweetgrass growing on the earth. Like the grass on the earth is stuff that they use in symbolism to just represent like the hair of the mother. And you know, even when you think about it, when you're carrying like a medicine bag or something and you want to create an amulet, or even in voodooism, they cut like a lock of hair to capture the essence of that person. But you can also carry a lock of hair as an act of memory, you know, to remember somebody by, you know, you put a little locket together with a little piece of hair in there or something like that. So there's lots of sentimental reasons around hair too. Anyway, all that aside, I had another little thought that came to me, another synchronous thing. And lately, okay, yesterday I was Googling some stuff on Instagram, and I found this really awesome meme from this lady called Steffi Wagner, and it said, "Pain travels through families until someone is ready to feel it." And for me, who is like really just coming upon the history of my family, like my father's side of the family, where like there's generational trauma in that side of my family, and I just really feel like all of us who are who are alive at this time came here to be the ones in our family to put an end to that trauma, to stop the cycle. And so this meme of pain travels through families until someone's ready to feel it, like really stuck out to me. And when I thought someone, by someone you must mean us, like us light workers who are the wounded healers who are healing the energy of the planet. And when they and then the more I read it, the more the statement started to sort of like trigger me and kind of like, I don't want to say piss me off, but like no, that doesn't completely fulfill the essence of what it is. Because, you know, it's not just someone, it's pain travels through families until you're ready to feel it. And then the word ready like bugged me. Like, it's not a matter of readiness at this point. It's a matter of choice, of choosing to be brave enough to feel safe enough to feel that trauma, to know that on some very deep level, like, that we are loved and guided, and there's a safe place for us to fall. Like, because most of the time when we have trauma or there's a wound there, we shy away from the pain, we block it out, we are numb to it. And in order for us to heal it, it's like we have to wake up the numbness. And many of us fear feeling the pain of that trauma, whatever it is. We fear pain. And so that's what the numbness is. The numbness is our body, our ego, trying to protect us, basically. And so when we're saying, well, no, you need to heal this, well, you know, it's this idea of a scab growing over a festering wound, but you don't feel it underneath because the top has, like, you know, grown over, and you sort of protected yourself in that sense from the deep wound. But underneath, it's still festering. It will come out eventually. You're not truly, in essence, healed and being in integrity in the sense of like wholly well. And so this idea that you need to wake up from the numbness, most people don't want to wake up from it because they're afraid of what it's going to feel like. They're afraid of feeling the pain. And so that pain travels through families until someone is ready to feel it. I want to say, no, pain travels through families until you are brave enough to allow yourself to feel it and say, screw this shit. That's how I think I would translate that. That's how I would modify that statement. I would say, this shit sucked, and it stops here, because I'm not going to push it away. I'm going to fully allow myself to feel it. Feel the pain and do it anyway. Fear the pain and brave yourself and do it anyway, and let it pass through you and allow yourself to wake up. And so when I look at the emotional scale, or the map of consciousness, there's numbness is where apathy is at. You feel numb when you're in apathy. So, you guys can reference the scale in the file section. And down here at the bottom is shame, and then guilt. And of course, in all kinds of family drama and trauma, there's shame and guilt galore. A really awesome book way back from, I think it was 80s or 90s, was John Bradshaw, Healing the Shame That Binds You. My mom had that book in her living room, and I always saw it like sitting in our little, we had like this huge crock pot kind of thing that we put books and magazines in it, and it was next to our bookshelf in our living room, and I always saw it in there. And so like this concept of familial shame, of healing the inner child, John Bradshaw, thank him for that concept. I don't know if he was the first one, but he made it popular, at least, to talk about this concept of the inner child and healing your shame from childhood and how it affected your identity. And so this concept, again, of familial or generational trauma and how we don't continue it, that's the reason why we go through a recovery process for healing. Why would we even do this in the first place? Well, you know what? When we heal ourselves, one person at a time, we are raising the vibration of the planet. And like doing this deep work within ourselves contributes to the whole, the collective unconscious. And there's one other piece I wanted to mention. And okay, when we talk about empowerment coaching, we talk about the working with parts, like the wounded self and the whole self, or the real self, the capital R real self, the divine self, the part of you that is an extension of divine source. And there's this idea that Chiron Chiron is if you aren't aware of this, Chiron was a mythological or Greek mythological character. He was a centaur who was also a healer, and I don't know the full story. You can find it online, Google it, whatever. But the story was he was a healer who wounded himself and was unable to heal himself, even though he was a gifted healer. And there's significance too about Chiron, the astrological or the astronomical. It's a planetoid. It's a comet. It's not really. I guess we'll call it an entity, an astrological entity. And Kaipacha, in his Paleo report, he talks about the influence of Chiron quite a bit. And I believe that Chiron, its influence over us in 2018, the reason why it's significant, I don't know its exact trajectory, but when Chiron is influencing you, it represents the wounded healer in all of us. And I will say that this idea of healing the self to heal the whole, healing the parts to heal the whole, because we are the sum of our parts, essentially. While we may be very wounded ourselves from trauma in the past or the collective unconscious, and all of the wounds of our society and culture are coming up to the surface, and we may feel like it's such a broken place. It's such a broken place, and I'm so broken. I still haven't fixed myself in many ways. Don't let that be the reason why you don't step into your divine mission, why you don't live up to your healing abilities. You have so much healing abilities with your imperfections. So there's no reason to be completely perfect, to be completely whole, to be in this totally empowered place. Another thing I wanted to bring about as I was saying all of this, and Chiron, this energy around Chiron, the wounded healer, there's another couple of excellent books that a spiritual intuitive told me to read way back when I started my soul journey. And I'm going to look it up right now because I'm going to get the name. The guy's name is very simple. His name is Robert Johnson, who wrote the books. But I talked about this a while back, and he wrote 3 books. They're little, almost like pamphlets. And when I read them, I was like, these are so dumb. They make no sense, and they're boring. I don't want to read them again. But they were very profound. And I was smart enough to reread them again. And they were obviously way more profound than I gave him credit for, because he talks about the wounded feeling function. And he has the three books are he, like H-E, like he is in him, she, as in the female counterpart to that, and then the other one was, I think it's called Fisher King and the Handmaid's Tale or something to that effect. Let me Google it real quick. Either way, I'll put them in the comment section. Well, anyway, in the Fisher King story, he uses fables, parables, similar to archetypes around. It's sort of like this medieval knight, and he gets a wound in his thigh, and because of the wound in his thigh, he's just like perpetually broken. And they call it. It talks about this wounded feeling function, and for me, the wounded feeling function was such a like abstract concept that I was like, I don't even know what this means. Kind of like the idea around being unavailable for something, to be emotionally unavailable for something, or to be energetically unavailable for it. When I had like such porous boundaries, that concept was mind-boggling to me. And so this wounded feeling function concept was mind-boggling to me, and it took me quite a while for it to sort of sink in. But the wounded feeling function, and again, this is how things are synchronous, and I believe it's because of this Chiron energy. And I bet if I were to go back when I looked up this stuff originally, and it came into my consciousness at the time, back in 2005, 2006, if I were to look at the trajectory of Chiron at that time, I would have seen that maybe it had a significant influence over me in my natal chart or whatever. But anyway, the wounded feeling function is that part of you that no matter how much you try to fix yourself, you'll still be fucked up. And that so many of, and then at the same time, how so many of us don't realize this, or not that we'll still be fucked up, but we still somehow feel not whole, not good enough, or not able to heal ourselves. And that it's such a pervasive wound in the collective unconscious that we don't even know we have it. We just feel like, and to me that was like such a fatalistic way of looking at things, like the brokenness of the world, you know, we'll always be broken, you know, according to this book from Robert Johnson and the wounded feeling function. But Kai Pacha's take on it was that the wounded feeling function to him meant we'll always be fucked up. You know, we're telling ourselves this. There's always a part of us that will never be able to completely heal, no matter how much work we do. We can be like 99 years old and gone through the same life lessons over and over and over again, and we thought we mastered them, and then they still have some hold over us. That's the wounded feeling function. But I also, when I was reading the book, I took it to mean being unaware of our feeling nature, being unaware that and that perpetual numbness, the inability to check in and ground ourselves and to know the way we're feeling, or once we know how we are feeling, being unaware of the intuitive knowledge about how to soothe ourselves and to make ourselves feel better when we're feeling wounded. And so when I see this all the time when we go on calls on patrol, of course, family disturbances, all of the nonsense I would see inside the jail, all the people fighting, all the little bickering and little reports that I had to do as the floor supervisor, just life in general, family members, the conflict that I see. When you see people obsessed with drama, there's definitely a level of unconsciousness going on. They're creating by default, and they're just reacting, and they're in that low resonating bandwidth of the map of consciousness. They're stuck in shame, they're stuck in guilt, they're stuck in apathy, anger, whatever, and they're easily triggered. So their bookends are down at the lower half of the map of consciousness. So then, what am I getting at here? With this wounded feeling function, this inability to kind of know the ways to self-soothe, and to be awake to where we're not reacting. We're in a place of neutral observation and emotional maturity or mastery. This is, to me, part of that wounded feeling function, where when we wake up from that and we heal from that, we then do know, hey, I am feeling pain right now and I don't like it. I'm not going to run from it, but I'm going to move through it, and I know how to move through it and soothe myself. And that's kind of what this whole meme of, pain travels through families until someone's ready to feel it. Well, when you're down here in that low resonating place, you're not ready to feel pain. You're ready to be numb, you're ready to be in shame and in guilt, but you're not ready to deal with the pain and release it, okay? It's when we get when we have done the work to give ourselves a support system in order to make it safe for us to feel the pain, like surrounded by loved ones, social support, life skills. These are ways that we make ourselves safe to where, when I think about my father's family didn't contact me until I was ready. I think, when the student is ready, the master will appear. God only gives you what you can handle, or however you want to look at it. But I felt like had they probably approached me 10, 12 years ago, before I had done so much work about learning to heal myself. And to this day, I still very much feel that wounded feeling function of no matter how much work you do, you always still kind of feel fucked up, And that's why I say there is no guru, there is no master, there is no, even the most enlightened person has the availability of the entire scale of, emotional scale or map of consciousness in their spectrum of energy. They just choose more consciously where they want to resonate on it. So what I was getting at was, I don't think that 10, 12 years ago, I was in an awake enough state to be able to feel the pain, basically. I would have been numb to the experience. And now that my family came into my existence, started circling into my consciousness, because I was ready to allow them, and all of the knowledge that's coming with it. And a lot of the knowledge is kind of some deep, heavy stuff. It's, crazy stuff. And that's the other thing. Along with generational pain, in order for you to let go of your own pain, you're also releasing other people's stories, which then you get into the whole shame and embarrassment and hiding, secrets, family secrets, so that you protect another's identity. This is why an amazing researcher in family psychology and particularly what she calls it relational injury, Christine Courtois, she talks about the word incest itself is being written out of society because people just can't deal with it. you know, not to be Debbie Downer here, but like most of the court cases on our docket are like sex assault of a child. I would say about a third of our cases are usually those crimes against children like that are somebody they know who is either family by blood, marriage, or some other tie, like you know, mom's boyfriend's dad or something like that. So, or they've even extended this familial tie to social connections, like priests to congregational members, teachers to students. That's sort of, you're supposed to be in a caregiving role, and the victim is in your life only because of that role that you have for them. You know, some sort of, they're kind of vulnerable to you because they have come to you either in a state of dependency, I guess, is lack of a better term. So anyway, so Christine Courtois talks about this relational injury and how the term incest is like kind of written out of our culture. It's no longer, it's not used in literature, research literature anymore. It's sort of watered down. All the section about the familial relationship when it comes to sex abuse, most sex abuse cases are family members. So that's incestuous right there. So anyway, I'm bringing all this up, like when we have like a history of family sex abuse and that sort of thing, how much do you share? How much do you talk about? And there's still that question of, am I not sharing this info to preserve the identity of somebody else? Or am I just not able to feel the pain yet, you know, and really deal with it and heal these generational wounds, you know, because that's our truth, right? That's our familial truth, if that's what's really going on in your family. But I've heard this saying, secrets make you sick. And without a doubt, absolutely, stuff like unresolved shame, unresolved trauma, and sexual abuse and those sort of things have shown through like the ACEs studies and other research that if you don't deal with those sort of things from an early age, it translates almost like 4,000% more likely that you were going to develop some kind of chronic disease. In particular, things like lung cancer, things like emphysema, things like COPD. And think about that. What are your lungs? Your lungs are the space where you hold grief, right? And your essence of how much are you able to take in? How much the breath of life can you take in? And so to me, it's like, of course, like that unreleased grief, that unreleased pain, it's stored in your lungs, and that's where that tends to, well, some of the places that also hold the most pain in the body, you know, women are wombs, those areas. But according to the ACEs study, things like lung cancer, hypertension, suicide, depression, you know, those sort of things. And I will also say too, though, just to be fair, that they're secondary to coping habits such as smoking and drinking. So if you have had some kind of trauma and you are trying to numb it, you will numb it with recreational drugs. They're no longer recreational, you're self-medicating at that point. You're numbing the pain with whatever addiction you have. Cigarettes, food, alcohol, dramatic relationships, whatever it is that's going to distract you from that internal pain so you don't have to actually be the one where, you know, the pain that's traveling through your family, it doesn't stop with you because you've chosen to go off in numbing land where you're addicted to stuff instead of stopping and actually waking up to the pain and feeling it. So this meme was pretty good. It's just got me thinking, pain travels through families until someone is ready to feel it. And I really think, so I want to go back to this idea that how do we support ourselves? Because I kind of think it's irresponsible to say, yeah, let's all just like open up this can of worms and then never give people the skills to soothe themselves. It's kind of like, we'll go to these calls, as a deputy here, we'll go to these calls and, ask them a whole bunch of agitating questions, but then, oh, we'll see you later, here's your case number, and bye. To me, I don't think that's responsible. I think it's like we need to teach people how to overcome this wounded feeling function. Now, of course, until somebody is ready to want to raise their level of consciousness, to really truly ready to work through that pain, people will only do so if they feel safe and they feel that they're capable of enduring it, really. But as soon as you feel the pain, you, of course, are not going to stay there. The idea is to endure it enough to truly feel it as you're waking up from numbing it for so long that you can let it go. And once you finally release it, instead of stuffing it down and suppressing, that's where the true healing comes from. And even if, again, it's cyclical where like, oh, I thought I was over this. I really was, but it's coming out in another way now. It's cyclical. And you still learn new ways to release it again until you stop having so many episodes of it coming up in other ways, in self-sabotaging ways. That's what true healing is about. And so I just want to reiterate this concept of, the wounded healer. And no matter how messed up you may feel, you still have the ability to heal yourself. And if not, and this concept of Chiron, where he felt like he could not heal himself, you still are able to heal. In your efforts to try to heal yourself, you're healing the whole, okay? So us wounded healers, those of us who are still working on ourselves, and we don't feel like we can heal the planet because we're still working on ourselves. No, the absolutely in the essence of you working on yourself, you're working on the planet. So there's a few spiritual practices that I talk about that are part of supporting yourself. Things that help me with energy management. Opening up sacred space. Do that at least once a day. Do what feels good to you, but I find that when I open up sacred space, it's like, again, releasing, surrendering to divine will. It's allowing yourself to work in the Akashic field, work in that space where, thoughts become things, and work in that space where it starts where the energy is. And it's the difference between like what David R. Hawkins talks about, power versus force. Force is like trying to make something happen, whereas when you're in sacred space, you're allowing something to happen. You're allowing and believing in divine will, that it's going to take care of you, that it's going to handle it. It's the part of you that, again, grows your hair. It's the force in the universe that grows hair, it grows your fingernails. It's not like you're sitting there telling your fingernails to grow. You're not telling yourself to, do all, your body is innately intelligent. And so it's hiding some of this pain from you until you're ready to process it. And I did some really good embodiment guided meditations last night that were really, really helpful. Like truly like helping me to wake up parts of my body that I was just like, man, I just felt completely numb to. I felt like my head was like the size of a lemon, like Beetlejuice, his head was like the size of a lemon, and yet I was detached from the rest of my body, and I was all up in my head. So it was like, that's hardly the energy that I'm supposed, I don't want to say supposed to, but like it's hardly the energy I'm capable of feeling in my body. And so most people who are in fight or flight or trauma, whatever, there is this enormous disconnect from sensations in the body because we're holding fear emotions, cellular memories, trapped trauma, and sometimes it stays in certain areas of the body that we may have never in our entire life given nurturing life force to. We've never allowed it to that area. And so this is just really kind of just amazing stuff. So when I talk about these sacred spaces, the sacred space that we open up to, and I call them the four corners, it's like using the elements, practicing energetic hygiene. You can pray to your altar every night. And so I just want to end real quick. I'm going to give you a couple examples here on how you can use the four elements with your, for regular practices to help you transmute some energy, move it out of you. So let's say you're feeling this numbness and you're trying to wake it up, and you have the pain in your body and you don't know where to go with it. It's really, trauma can't be healed through the mind. It has to be healed through the body because it's stored there. The numbness and the pain is stored in the body. That book, Bessel van der Kolk wrote, The Body Keeps the Score. He talks all about that. And then there's other books by Dr. Stephen Porges, the polyvagal theory, where your vagus nerve is like basically this big nerve. It's like goes down through the back of your head, and it's literally the nerve that connects your brain, the mind-body connection. And if you're in a state of trauma, or unresolved trauma, your vagal nerve shuts down, and you literally don't have any little feelers, little capillaries, little tributaries of ways, neural pathways, essentially, that your body can communicate to these other places that you maybe are cut off from, but are doing unconsciously. And so these ways that really are helpful are, like I told you all about, blowing into a rock, or visualizing blowing into a pink bubble and letting it go. That's using air element, right? The blowing aspect. Using breath work, meditation, a lot of yogic practices, where you're holding one nostril, breathing in, exhaling through the other one, breathing in again. That's breath work, right? And that's another way you can use the element of air. Besides blowing into, you can combine them too, like blowing into your intentions or stress or your pain or this feeling of numbness that you're having into a rock, and then you go outside and go bury it in the ground. That's using air and earth. And then the act of burying stuff, that's what one of my mentors, Carrie Hummingbird, calls kind of this mulching energy. It's really like the alchemy of earth. Like when you mix it up and you transmute that pain or energy or whatever it is you want to put into the earth, it's like Mother Earth absorbs it and transmutes it into something more neutral and grounded. And even grounding itself, the term grounding, where you walk barefoot on the ground, that's a way to use earth element. You can use earth element to represent planting seeds. The very act of planting seeds can be therapeutic. You can visualize planting seeds in an abstract way or a very literal way. Planting the seeds of your new business, or planting the seeds of your garden that you literally know is going to be like food that you'll eat and is good for you. And, you know, you get the idea. So anyway, many ways that people use earth energy for healing, like grief, planting, you know, using rocks or some other important stuff that's symbolic to them. Like maybe you have to let go of a relationship, so you'll bury the photograph of your loved one that you can't let go of, and you put it in the ground, and then you want something to come of that. Like when, you know, I lost a baby a while ago, I thought I need to plant a tree to represent the memory of this child, and I was going to plant like a lilac bush or something like that. So we did that. When I was a kid, we planted a lilac bush over our family pets, and just every time we see the bush in the backyard, we know that's commemorative of that, you know, pet. But anyway, these are ways to process that grief, that numbness, that trauma, that you know, by using these elements. Fire, lighting a candle, and just staring at it, and really the act of lighting it is like, hey, I'm bringing this topic to light, and I'm going to meditate, and I'm going to pray on it and whatever. And then when you're ready to release it, you know, blow it out. That's a combination of air and fire. You know, there's so many, there's no wrong way to do it. Okay. So, and of course, water, you know, some of my favorite ways to use water is I will fill up my water bottle and I will pray about it, and I will infuse the water with something like, you know, a new way of being, or peace, love, beauty, whatever, and, you know, gratitude. And then I drink it, and I'm drinking in that intention. Or taking a bath, where, you know, what are these are just some ways that you can use the elements to help you transmute your energy. And I will say this, like me being a Sagittarius, and, you know, I'm, you know, have a lot of fire energy, I tend to gravitate towards something that will balance me out, like earth energy or water energy. You know, so if I'm feeling like too much and it's like clogged up in me, I will take a bath, or I'll need to walk outside barefoot. I really find those things literally grounding and balancing for me. But maybe you're an air element and you need some, you know, less airy-fairy and more grounding. Or you need to really bring the air, so you add the fire element to it. You know, so you see what I'm saying. Well, anyway, all that aside, it's getting close to, I'm almost going a whole hour again tonight, and I didn't want to ramble too long. These were things that came up for me. And I know, so I'm going to post the links about the Robert Johnson books. And I think I mentioned Bessel van der Kolk and Stephen Porges. These are some really good books. And then, of course, the Crosby, Stills and Nash song. You guys have a wonderful night. It's getting dark here, and I'm going to go eat. So, love you all. Bye for now. And I will see you on Sunday for the card pull party. And don't forget, if I am putting together a guided meditation, it's Saturday, April 28th. It's going to be the full moon in Scorpio, and this is an excellent time to release repressed emotions. Let's use and Scorpio is a water sign, so I'm going to find ways with this guided meditation to incorporate some water element to it. So, all right, guys, have a blessed night. Love you. Bye for now.